Labour has not exactly been quiet about Reform UK recently. In the flag-waving three-day circle jerk that was their conference, they seem to mention Reform and Farage more than their own party. The key target of attack has been Reform's policy announcements on indefinite leave to remain. Starmer and his goons have labelled it racist, despite having their own plans to curb the status. Leave to remain, LTR, is permission, usually through a visa, to work and live in the country. You can apply to make this indefinite once you have done so for 5 years. This is also known as residency. It does not have the same status or allow the same rights as full British citizenship, but it does mean you can stay in the country unless you commit a serious crime or it is found you applied fraudulently. Citizenship can be applied for 1 year after receiving indefinite LTR. Cutting down on indefinite LTR, therefore, will reduce the amount of citizenships that are given out. Reform, in plans announced on the 22nd of September, propose to abolish LTR entirely. They will simply revert to a visa system, dubbed the Acute Skills Shortage Visa. This will supposedly be for essential workers of all kinds, and the workers will need to renew it every 5 years. The amount of these visas will be limited to an unknown amount. It will be harder to obtain because it will require a much larger earning threshold than visas currently do. It will also require a higher standard of English language ability. Reform claim it will generally not allow for dependents, but there could be exceptions. In addition to this, Reform will prevent all foreign nationals without British citizenship from accessing welfare benefits. They will also increase the time you must wait before applying for citizenship. You will have to serve 7 years on a visa before doing so. Both of these are fair enough in my view. Indeed, the latter does not go far enough. It's only 1 year more than under the current regime, which is 5 years of working plus 1 year of LTR. As a GB News journalist pointed out at the launch, Reform's policy will allow migrants to become citizens within 7 years rather than the 11 under Labour's plans. What Labour will not do, however, is the more controversial aspect of Reform's plans, the possible removal of LTR retrospectively. It is unclear exactly how this would work, but Reform do imply that people who aren't awarded the new visa could have their LTR revoked and thus will be deported. At the policy launch, Farage and Yousaf specifically mentioned the Boris wave and said LTR would not be granted to anyone who came during it. The Boris wave was the glut of several million migrants that came following the COVID pandemic, peaking in 2022. Farage claimed at least 800,000 of these will be given LTR over the next few years, costing at least £234 billion a year in public spending. Say the Boris wave began in 2021. Migrants who came during it will become eligible for indefinite LTR next year, then citizenship in 2027. If Reform were to get into government during 2026, they could simply abolish LTR and stop this. However, if there was, as is possible, no general election until 2029, most of the Boris waivers would have already been given LTR. If Reform wanted to honour the policy, they would have to strip the LTR from these migrants. Reform did not rule this out when queried, but they were cautious not to get drawn too much on the matter. I should say there is some ambiguity here, which is not unheard of with Nigel Farage. But what if they did have to retrospectively strip LTR? Would that be a step too far, and would it be possible? Removing a right once it has been officially granted, without good reason, is against usual legal norms. I do feel honouring existing arrangements is normally for the best, however unwisely they were made. Introducing the Boris wave into the discussion does, though, make for a compelling notion. Whatever you think of removing LTR after the fact, it could certainly be argued the Boris wave was also a gross violation of norms. It was unprecedented, without any permission from the electorate, having a calamitous effect on our infrastructure, social fabric, and standards of living. You could argue this was an illegitimate act of the state, and thus measures considered unusual or even unethical are justified in tackling it. My own view is that we should certainly stop LTR as soon as we can. Why should there be an automatic right for foreign nationals to live here indefinitely? We need to drastically cut the amount of new inhabitants and citizens in order for us to get the country under control. Our spending and borrowing is astronomical. Our infrastructure is groaning under the strain. Housing demand is too high, and our culture is fracturing. We cannot keep recruiting new Britons under these circumstances. At the very least, the time period by which migrants have to work and live here before applying should be increased significantly. In fairness, Labour and the Tories are proposing to do this, doubling it from 5 to 10 years. That's a good start, but it doesn't go far enough.